Hello, Peaceful Warriors. This is your host, Anil, and welcome to my show, Peaceful Growth, where I interview successful entrepreneurs and experts who have achieved remarkable growth in their business or profession. We all want to grow in our life, right? But not at the cost of our peace and happiness. So we also talk about some of the strategies, tips, and techniques on how to manage this growth by also having a successful and purposeful life. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter, Learn Plus Grow, at anilg.substack.com, where I share 3 tips to help you learn, grow, and inspire each week. Now to today's episode. Hey everyone, this is Anil, and on Peaceful Growth podcast and this interview series, today I have my guest Aslam. Hi Aslam.
Hi Anil, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so Aslam, good to have you here, and most importantly, there is a lot of interesting connection between us, and I thought about you not just because you're my business partner and a friend, but also you have a really interesting journey in terms of growth and learning. And I think our audience for this podcast and this interview series, they can learn a lot and get a lot of inspirations. So let me get started with a quick intro about Aslam. So Aslam is a CTO and co-founder of Multidots, and he's also my business partner. And he has been one of the lead organizer of WordCamp Ahmedabad. If I remember correctly, pretty much he's the one who actually started WordCamp Ahmedabad and revived it. Apart from that, he has been the speaker at multiple different WordPress events. And here he is.
Yeah.
Anything else, Aslam, you would like to add into this?
No, first of all, thanks Anil for having me here. It's an honor, and I'm pretty excited to share, a couple of thoughts on this podcast. And congratulations to you on starting this journey.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to. Sorry, say that again.
No, you covered the introduction very well. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I was saying that as a part of this podcast intro, I mentioned it at some point that this is the most uncomfortable thing that I'm doing. That I'm an introvert, but also most of the popular podcast that you and I have been listening, the people are normally native English speakers, so English not being your first language, and introverts and all that. This is definitely one of the challenging thing that I'm doing. But this is also a part of the challenge that you don't grow staying in your comfort zone. So doing this podcast is a challenge for me to get out of my comfort zone and doing something that is necessary for the growth, even though it seems a little uncomfortable in the beginning.
Yeah, that's very well said. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Awesome. So everyone, Aslam, on top of everything I shared about Aslam, one unique thing, and that's one of the reasons why I also invited him for this podcast, is that he manages 100 plus people. And managing a team of 100 and plus, it's not an easy thing to do. So that's what I want to get some insight into Aslam's life and strategy and how he manages 100 plus people in Multidots, plus also playing this role. And he's also an awesome father of a cute girl. So there are a lot of responsibility that he's managing, and that's exactly where the peaceful growth fits. Because a lot of people I have seen in my life, they have achieved remarkable success. But on the other side, they have constantly been struggling with managing the work and life. We call it work-life balance. So there are a lot of different aspects of that. I'm sure some of you who are listening here or watching this might have experienced that. So that's one of the reasons why I picked Aslam for this interview, to learn some insights on managing work-life balance. So Aslam, I think that's my first question, that what's your version of peaceful growth or work-life balance?
That's a interesting question. And like you mentioned, for many of the people who are like involved into IT industry, right? Like they might be having the similar struggle or similar question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question you ask, what is the version of work-life balance? I would say a version of a life where you are able to do what you would love to do, right? And you are not feeling stressful and overwhelmed, and you are enjoying it. Right? That is, I would say, a work-life balance. Um, let's say if you have to spend like 10 hours or like more than 10 hours a day in your work, but you are enjoying it, that is a different story. But let us say you end up investing a lot of time where you have other priorities and you might want to focus, then it is not a work-life balance. That is how I would mention it when we say like what is like a quality work-life balance.
I love that definition, Aslam. I think another way, or in other words, it's what you're saying is love what you do. As long as you love what you do and you feel fulfilled of doing that, you will not burn out or you will not feel that something is off balance.
Agree. For example, I have a couple of examples. Like I myself was doing programming, many years ago, and I still do programming nowadays. Also, whenever I get an opportunity, but I had this particular examples where, in the past we had a client challenge, and we ended up spending like more than 36 hours altogether without even a rest. Right. At the time, I was enjoying it. Right. Like I still do enjoy it. Then I would not say that it was a like stressful life. Like it was as a life I was enjoying.
Great. So let's go back a little bit, Aslam. So, would you mind sharing about what was your first job, and if there is any significant learning from that first job before you turn entrepreneur?
Sure. I think that is a journey. Actually, I shared it with you, right? In fact, before that also, like, funnily enough, like, if you say my first job, then my first job was in the 10th standard, vacation of 10th standard in education, Indian education system. We have a like 10th grade, right? When you have a vacation. So due to the financial situation, I wanted to help in my family, and that is when I opted for a 2 month of a labor job. So that was literally like my first job. It lasted for 2 months, right? And then my next journey started in education, but it was like the salary was like $1 a day, something kind of. So that was my first job, but if I consider a full-time job, then I think I shared that beautiful journey with you, Anil. Right? Like during our college days, to pay our college fees, we had a job at a company called Oromira, where we were developing a college management system. So that was the first job, and I think one of the critical learning from that job that I derived is like follow when you identify your passion without worrying about the outcome or anything, just focus on passion, right? And then don't worry about the outcome. Like if you follow your passion, then eventually you will find your way in life. So that was like one of the takeaway I had from the first job.
Great. Yeah, you mentioned about the passion, Aslam, and yeah, that's the one thing that I truly admire about you, that I haven't seen you ever complaining about anything that you're doing. You know, it's not just something that, like, I know we as a friend and also as a business partner, we both have tried and played multiple different roles in Multidots as well as the previous companies where we worked for, and especially, yeah, I would have certain expectations, and when my expectations wouldn't meet, you know, probably I will be a little disappointed in the terms of, like, I will start losing the passion and interest in that job or role. But I have seen you have been super consistent as far as, doesn't matter what the role or the job is. I've seen that you try your best and you give your best.
Agree.
And yeah, so your reflection on the passion is something that I can definitely attest to it as a first-hand experience, you know, being with you.
True. Yeah, that is true. Thanks.
All right, so now let's talk about your journey to WordPress. So yeah, that's something that I didn't ask these questions earlier to a lot of my guests, but I'm curious to know, what's your journey into the WordPress?
Yeah. That's a thing that will force me to think through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I think about it, it is kind of very interesting thing there. If you remember, like back in around 2006 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
while I was doing a job at a particular company as a team lead.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, having your blogging website was like what kind of a trend, right? And I remember myself, playing with multiple WordPress themes. At that time, you know, I downloaded a couple of WordPress themes and set up my own blog, right? Like, unfortunately, I was not able to continue it, but that is what I remember as my first encounter to WordPress as my own use case.
Yeah.
Right? And then we, when started at Multidots, we started serving multiple clients.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where, I was like much more involved into the development aspect of WordPress. We served a lot of client. I remember, we had one big client where we utilized the advanced WordPress of its multi-site architecture and all, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is where, I got more involved into the WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, we traveled to the WordCamp San Francisco in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
That was first introduction to the WordPress events. And then after, I think we can say that the rest of this history, like I got more indulged into the WordPress ecosystem, WordPress community, and that resulted into the very active participation in WordPress Ahmedabad community, which hosted a lot of meetups and eventually multiple WordCamps as well. But yeah, it was an interesting journey. Like, and I was surprised. I was always wondering that I could have involved more before WordPress when I started that blogging. But yeah, but I would say back in, like, since 2006, one or other way, I was connected with WordPress.
Do you remember at that time, around that time, there were so many CMSs out there, right? Like Drupal, and I remember, what was the other one? Joomla was there, very popular for sure. Do you remember any other open source CMS?
Drupal, Joomla. And then others were on Zencart and PrestaShop and all. That was on the e-commerce part
A
of
lot of e-commerce, yeah. So So yeah, so what I assume is that you also had an experience, or maybe a little bit of hands-on with some of those other open source CMSs that we mentioned as a
Yeah.
developer at that time. Was there any particular thing about the WordPress that you liked or did not like at the time as a developer?
Um, I would say, when I was utilizing it for my own purpose, then the popular famous 5-minute installation was as a thing that I really loved about WordPress, right? Like being it an open source PHP based project, I was really impressed to see that unlike like very similar to an exe file, like you can install WordPress very easily by following the wizard, right? That was a very interesting thing. Uh, Another thing which I'm still impressed today is the WordPress community, right? Like back in those days as well, like there were a lot of themes and plugins available. At the same time, a lot of online help was available, right? Like let's say if you want to learn customizing yourself, or if you want to learn theme development, plugin development, resources were available at that time also, which is like a thriving community these days also. So that is the one of the very best thing I really love about WordPress is the community support you have.
Yeah, you mentioned about the WordCamp US 2014 in San Francisco. I mean, I don't think they were calling WordCamp US, right? They were just calling the WordCamp San Francisco. I think after next year, from that point, that's where they started to name it like a WordCamp US. That's what I
Oh,
remember.
yeah, that might be true. Exactly. Now I think it is pretty clear. I agree. On
Yeah,
our badge, I still have that badge stored somewhere in my memory kit.
yeah,
Is a WordCamp San Francisco. I agree. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, I think after later, few years later, they started to name this big WordCamp as a WordCamp US. But anyway, I think WordCamp San Francisco in 2014, it was definitely one of the great experience,
True.
especially walking through those halls and seeing Matt in the first time, and a lot of these people that at that time were our heroes. It's I think I agree that my experience as well, just to connect and be involved in the WordPress community. I felt it very warm and welcomed, and that certainly stayed with me even till this date.
Correct. Yeah.
Great. All right. So the next question I have is about that you're managing some of the enterprise clients. Like News Corp, PepsiCo, and SiriusXM, Ask Media, all these big enterprise brands that, and for the WordPress migrations and other enterprise WordPress needs. One question I have for you on that is, and that might be helpful to a lot of listeners, is when you are leading such a big agency as Multidots, 100 plus people, and such enterprise clients, what are those things that you have learned, in your last 10, 14 years of journey working on these kind of projects? What are some of those big lessons that, not big lessons, but some of those key lessons that you would like to share with someone who is managing such kind of enterprise clients or large teams?
Yeah. Let's say you are asking this question from an engineering team point of view, like what should the developers or managers do, or you are asking this in sense of the client point of view?
No, from the point of the managers and executives. So imagine someone who is leading the team, like you leading all the clients, working with those clients. So someone who is on a manager or executive position.
Yep. No, sure. For that, recently, I provided a presentation in an event called Stage of Digital Publishing. Right, that is where I kind of addressed multiple points. That is where one of the critical thing is planning, right? Like you, let's say, being a solution provider, you might want to make sure that, okay, what are the end goals for the client they want to achieve, right? And let's say that involves like what kind of editorial workflows they want to follow, what kind of audience they are serving, what kind of content they are going to produce, right? And at the same time, if I go a little bit technical, then what kind of page builders they are willing to utilize, right? Like what kind of third party integrations or analytics tools they are going to use. And let's say if they are already using current content management system, then what are the challenges they are having, right? So asking those kind of questions will clarify the entire vision for the client. And then one of the very good practice that we follow at Multidots that I would like to highlight is having a dedicated time for solution architecting, right? Like a solution meeting. So let's say involve your lead engineers or involve your technical project managers or solution architects and have the entire project plan ready in terms of solutions as well before actually starting the execution. And that has been a really like a very important aspect of our entire process for implementing successful delivery of such kind of projects, right? And that has resulted into a positive success for our clients also. Like then we actively keep involve them on our discussion. So having that meeting is really useful.
Is there any misunderstanding or myth that usually project managers or the managers in general have working with enterprise clients that you have experienced? Did you get my question?
If you can elaborate, yeah, please.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, let's say some managers, just like managers or executives, sometimes when they're transitioning from working with the small, medium clients to enterprise clients, they do have a certain level of, the misunderstanding or myth about like, this is how it will look like, or this will be the challenges that I'll face working with enterprise clients or something like that. So if there is anything that you encounter, like, no, that's not true. When working with the enterprise client, this is what matters. This doesn't matter. Something like that.
Got it. Yeah. And that's an interesting question. Yeah. One of the, let me just put it this way, that let's say, and this is my own experience, I can share it, that we may have a thinking that, okay, like compared to, we might want to follow a completely different style of development approach while working with enterprises, right? Or let us say my normal WordPress based solutions might not help to satisfy some of their needs. But on the contrary, what I have seen is WordPress is such a beautiful and flexible content management system where if it is well thought, if the solution is well thought and implemented, then going with most of the native approach, it also satisfies the needs of your enterprise client as well. For example, what I'm referring to is, let us say if you are developing like a 4 to 5 page website, then you might be utilizing the native elements of custom post types or a particular set of a page builder or so. But at the same time, if you are referring to an enterprise customer, the same solutions might work there, right? But the only focus where would be required is your coding standards or some of the best practices that you are following. So that is what I'm saying, that you might not need to like completely rediscover something like amazing to serve enterprise customers, but it is the default approach that will like be well thought and implemented that can serve to the enterprise customers as well, right? The real Their crux lies in a clear and transparent communication and understanding the client's need in a much better way. Yeah. I'm not sure if I was able to answer that question, but yeah.
You did. And one thing I'll add into that, as you mentioned about it, like sometimes managers or founders think that in order to serve or work with enterprise clients, they have to do something magical or something innovative or something like that. But what you mentioned about, like, no, that's not true. Like, I think, and that's my experience is also on the same way, where I feel like working with enterprise clients is much easier or same as working as the small and medium customers. There are a few things definitely changes, and it should be changing. But as far as if as a manager or as a project manager, if you are in charge of delivering on an enterprise project, what I see is that they're much easier to work enterprise clients because
True.
They are much organized and timeline in terms of the resources and all of that. My experience has been that they are much involved in the project management process. So I think it's just getting an enterprise client in the beginning, right, and providing that confidence and that brand promising. I think that's a part which is tough. But once you start working on an enterprise projects or enterprise clients work project, I have noticed that the rest of the project management process, execution, deliveries are much more something that the same or easier, or not super difficult in the small medium. Sometimes I feel like small medium clients and their projects are much difficult to deal with. Because their timelines are not defined, they're constantly changing, and a lot of different other aspects of that. But in terms of the enterprise clients, that's kind of like one misunderstanding I had in the beginning, that working with enterprise clients will change our whole world upside down. But that wasn't true. Would you agree? Yeah. Great. So now let's move on to your routine, Aslam. So would you mind sharing what your current routine looks like work routine and the weekend routine?
Sure, I can share. So by personality, I am a night owl kind of a person. Like, I prefer working more during the nights, and I think probably it might be common with most of the engineers as well, right?
Yeah.
And recently I moved to Canada last year in 2022. So earlier in India, my most of the routine was like I start my day pretty around like 10 a.m. in the morning, and then to match up with my meetings in the evening, I stay up late. But after moving to Canada, it has completely shifted, right? And I would say I'm glad that that thing happened. Like, now, to engage, coordinate with my team in India, I wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning here in Calgary, Canada, so that I have 3 to 4 hours of overlap with my team. And so that is like my starter time, like a morning couple of hours from 5 to 5 to 9. I'm kind of super involved in there, right? But before even starting work, I engage into a couple of meditations and yoga practices. Like, I really love the challenge that you have started with our leadership team. So having some activities, and then a little bit of a tea. I'm a tea person, so have a tea, and then I start my work. So from 6 to around 8:30, 9, it is a busy time. Then I'll have the breakfast with my wife and daughter, and then I got back to the work again. So mostly I have the busy day from 6 to till the afternoon, 2 to 3 p.m. And then, I utilize that time to have fun activities with my daughter. So, I have been taking her to the library on a regular basis. So we go to the library or visit the playgrounds or parks, right? And then I have my physical activity 1 hour. I have allocated for myself, where I can work out or go for running. And then after, also little bit of reading, half an hour or 1 hour of reading. And then if there is a requirement, I engage into 1 hour of again working with my Indian team, if there is a. But otherwise, I go to bed early, right? Because I have to wake up in the morning again. So this has been a pretty consistent routine since last more than a year now, and I'm really happy that I was able to change that, make that shift to become a morning person, because that is something I always wanted to do. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you see any positive changes in your productivity or mood because moving to early morning start of the day?
I have really enjoyed it because those 3 hours. Funnily enough, at that time, my daughter Sana, she's sleeping,
Yeah.
so I completely get those straight, like 3 to 4 hours without any disturbance.
Nice.
And in the productivity era, people say this, right? Like morning is the most productive time, and I have observed. And imagine, like sometime I have observed that within the morning 3 hours, I might have done a lot of work. Like, so I have already that winning feeling that wow, he has been already productive since first 3 hours. And then the rest of the day really goes with that gratification that wow, like things are going good.
Yeah, there's one quote that I often go back to for some inspiration. It says 2 hours before 9 a.m. is like 4 hours, and the same 2 hours after 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. will be just 1 hour. So it's just, that's how it changes the whole the productivity. I mean, of course, like everyone has a different like sleep rituals, and 3 people are morning person, 3 people are evening person. But once you identify that, that you are morning or evening, and depending on the kind of work you do, but majority, I would say, people will be able to change that habit. That's one thing that is also, I have observed that despite you being a morning or evening person or whatever the sleep types or assessments that you do, there is a huge possibility that you can change into any type of, like any of the routine, as long as you are getting 7 or 8 hours of recommended sleep.
Agree. Yeah.
Right. So one question I wanted to ask you about, as you mentioned about your time with your daughter, and that is something that I have observed that you and Afsana both as a parent have done a really good job, raising Sana, and I had a experience really good experience spending some time with you both and Sana. So one question I have is, what advice or tips that you would like to share with someone who is just become a parent or about to become a parent, and whatever you learned, becoming a parent, and your exploration and adventure on that topic.
Of course. No, I think that is one of the tough question, but I would say, I must agree that every parents will be happy to answer that, right? And I believe every parents will have a different experience with their kids. But since you ask about the learning, so one of a pretty basic advice that I always encounter with other people also when we visit, when we go for a walk outside as well. Like for example, if you meet any elder, they will say that wow, she is so cute, and they grow very fast, right? And that is the pretty usual comment I get. And I think my daughter is now 2.5, and I am now able to connect that.
Mm,
And that, yes, like they do grow really fast, and you kind of missing them already. Yeah.
mm,
Example, I'm a photography is my another hobby, so I keep clicking photographs for Sana,
mm,
and my photos keep showing me my memories, right?
mm,
When I see her photo memory, I always like get that nostalgic feeling that, wow, like I was just carrying her like this, and
mm,
now she is always like already grown up, like she's started to walk independently, right? So one of the advice for all the parents, that spend as much time as you get with your kids,
mm,
right? Yes, they are going to grow so fast, right? And soon one day they will start going to their schools, and they will become teenager, and then they will have their own life. So enjoy this time as much
mm.
as you, right?
Yeah. And I also like you like scheduling a dedicated time with her during the week to go to library and doing the activities like that. I think that's something that when you shared with me, I really like that idea, because usually what happens like at home or maybe other places, right? It's your everyday space, but when you leave that space and go to a new place like library or coffee shop or something,
Yeah,
that's where you your kid is also kind of like being a part of the whole new experience and community, and doing allowing that experience and being with your kids in that experience, in the new experience. I think that is something that can help them a lot in terms of learning and growing and adopting and being more involved in the other social activities and things like that.
correct, correct. No, and I also recommend one of the book that I read about parenting
Mm-hmm.
is The Whole Brain Child, and there is another book called The No Drama Discipline, right?
Okay.
So it is by the same author,
Mm-hmm.
and both are like very interesting book, and every parent must read it. And one of the quote that I like about that book is
Mm-hmm.
the only way to teach your kids, like at this age, kids will learn from their experiences, right? And when I was connecting with that sentence, I was able to connect with myself as well.
Mm-hmm.
The only way a human being learns things is by experiences, right? Like
Someone else experiences or their own experiences.
own experiences, right? Like
Okay.
own experiences as well. For example, let's say to Sana, my daughter, like if I want her to learn on her own,
Mm.
let her have an experience of walking by herself, or climbing the stairs by herself, or going to the library, or
Mm.
likewise playing on her by her own, right?
Yeah.
So that was a very good touching point to me, that provide as unique experiences as you can to your kids, right? Like
Mm.
that will open up their imagination about the world, right?
Yeah.
So that was like interesting thing I have been following. And another is that was my own learning, that kids learn from their parents by observing them, right? Like
Mm.
so you are the great teacher for them, right? So that is something we are giving, me and Afsana both, we are giving in our practice as much as possible,
Yeah.
that whatever learnings we want to give her, we are trying to do it by ourselves. Like for
Yeah.
example, read. So we literally spend reading in front of her, like
Mm.
of eating by her own self. So we make sure that we all have a dinner together,
Mm.
so she has her own plate, right?
Mm.
So we are also eating, and she is also learning to eat by herself,
Yeah.
right? So showing by example, like no screen time in front of her. So we are trying that, and I
Yeah.
would say we are successful a bit also in that. But that would be another advice to all the parents, that children are like observing to you if you are aware or not. So make sure you are mindful about it, and they will grab your personality, right? Like for example, if you are always angry, or if you are like screaming on things, then they will also observe that. But if you are cultivating a positive environment in your house, they will also observe that.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Aslam. And I really like that, especially because, as you mentioned, like kids learn through examples, right? So whatever we do as a parent, they will learn and follow it. So I think that's also a great opportunity to get rid of some bad habits, because if we keep doing those stuff that we are not proud of, about our own habits. So as you say, like, it becomes kind of like a goal and a beautiful inspiration as well, in order to get rid of some bad habits and build some good habits as a parent for ourselves, so that we can also, in a way, I think it also inspires you to build more good habits, and also grow in as a person, because you want to make sure that you want to provide positive examples and inspirations to your kids.
Agree. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so you mentioned about a couple of parenting books, so we will put that into show notes later on. But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned some of those books, because there was one of my question about. Actually, I have two questions around the books, as you mentioned. The one is what are the books that you would recommend for the parenting, which you already mentioned. So we'll put it in the show notes. But is there any particular book that you would recommend everyone to read, and that book also has some or other way significantly change your life or perspective of life?
Sure. Yeah, I have read multiple books, but some of the books that really touched me is one of my first book. I think you are aware about it. Is Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari. Right? It was like I read it many years ago, and I read it multiple times as well. So that is one of the book I will highly recommend to everybody. It itself is a bestseller book. So that one is a pretty good one. And the way Robin Sharma has highlighted all the notes in multiple chapters and multiple practices, those are like really amazing, right? Second book that I really loved is a book name is called Crucial Conversations.
Okay.
Right? And it is a very small book, and the reason why I liked this book is it really has that concept of having crucial conversations, either for example in a corporate world or in your personal life as well, that most of the conflicts can happen by the way of listening or talking between your colleagues or your relatives or your spouses, right? So that book really addresses that how you can handle crucial conversations, right? And if you will read the preface of the book also claimed very well that this book has made a lot of impact on overall society in the world as well, right? So that is the book I would highly recommend to go through for everybody.
Okay. No, great recommendations. Robin Sharma, I love him. I've read a lot of his books, and I like his writing as an author. So thanks for recommending those books. We'll put them in the show notes as well. All right, so the next few questions are kind of like a rapid fire round, Aslam. So we'll just make it quick.
Sure.
So first question I have is, in terms of productivity hack, is there any particular or biggest productivity hack that helped you save a lot of time in your work or life that you want to share?
Sure. I recently, went through a course where, I follow this terminology called needle movers, right? Needle movers means what are the most important tasks that you must get done, maybe at a weekly frequency or a daily frequency, right?
Mm.
So many times, I have believed that we don't have similar mood every day.
Yeah.
So let's say, like, sometime you are feeling up and down or so, but I have defined these needle movers. For example, 1 hour of task killer, right? Like 1 hour of killer. So I follow this routine that at least I have to spend 1 hour where it will be like task killer. Like I need to kill most important tasks, right?
Mm.
Uh, no matter what, I try to not miss this particular 1 hour. So that
Mm.
has really made a pretty big impact on my overall productivity.
Mm.
Yeah. So for implementing the needle movers.
Yeah. Thanks, Aslam. What are your top 3 life values?
Yeah, perfect. Uh, Interestingly, I spent in last couple of months, I spent a lot of time thinking about it,
Mhm.
and I have it in front of me. My key life values are knowledge, introspection, and kindness. Yeah, knowledge in the sense I really love to acquire knowledge in multiple fields,
Mm.
right? Like which includes engineering, programming, uh, aerospace, or parenting. Introspection, I love to think about myself, or how I could have done things better. So I'm pretty good believer of introspection,
Mm.
right? On any things happens. And kindness, I would love to serve to the society and spread kindness around the world. So these are the three values I really follow.
Love it. Especially, I like the kindness that you mentioned, Aslam. Yeah, that's something that um, is definitely you, and your reflection into everything that you do. I can definitely sense kindness as one of the strong value and the vibration that coming out of you from all the actions that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
How are you using the AI tools in your work and life?
Mm. Yeah, that is the buzzword these days, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
that's why we have to check that box.
Correct. Correct. Mostly writing is the very common use case there where everybody is using. Like similarly, I'm also utilizing ChatGPT on like improvising my email writing, right? Like, or maybe to have it compact, uh, or improvise the writing. At
Mhm.
the same time, I'm utilizing ChatGPT for like book summaries a lot. And that is where I really love your recent post on your Substack, right? Where you have highlighted that how you can utilize ChatGPT. So
Mm.
getting the book summary, like that is where I have been utilizing ChatGPT a lot. And others are like very funny use. Like I myself, you know, I keep making weird like imaginations. For example, recently I asked to ChatGPT that what if websites or internet was never invented? What would be the life of web developers, right?
Wow,
And
I
then
love that
you see
question.
some answers, right?
What was the ChatGPT's answer? Anything interesting?
It was like, no, it was interesting and very thoughtful as well, right? Like, for example, in a very short explanation, if I would say,
Yeah.
ChatGPT said that if websites were not there, then other technologies would have really evolved. For
Mm.
example, mobile applications would be primary communication of consuming informations,
Mm.
or internet applications would be there. A lot of larger organizations would be relying on intranet applications. Then those kind of developers would be needed more, likewise, right?
Mm.
So there would be other options available there, or we might have different innovations.
Yeah.
But it is always funny, like how thoughtful answers provides, like ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you using any other tools besides ChatGPT? AI tools?
Mm, no, as of now, because what I believe is, as of now, my professional life also doesn't demand any such tool. But one thing where I'm exploring is utilizing AI in terms of development practices, and that is something I'm really exploring for Multidots as well, for our all web engineers, where how we can utilize. One of the interesting use case, for example, is having documentation. Like, for example, you have written some code, and you can ask ChatGPT to provide like meaningful comments and optimizing the code. So that was like one of the use case where I was really impressed, and I'm planning to see more what kind of more use cases we can achieve to improvise our development practices.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah, ChatGPT is amazing. Like,
but I believe you have been doing a lot of research on ChatGPT. So what do you think? Like, what are the different ways you are utilizing ChatGPT?
yeah, no, you're right. Like, I've been playing with ChatGPT a lot, and yeah, I think common use cases probably will be like writing, of course. Like, when it comes to writing, how I can improve my writing. Reading and writing is for sure primary use case, but beside that, I use a lot for the research. Research in terms of, let's say, there are like some information which is impossible for Google or any search engine or any website to kind of like put it together, more like personalized research. So I'll give you an example that I have this my morning breakfast, so I consider that as one of the healthy breakfast option, so I've been eating that for a while, and I wanted to learn more about that, like how healthy this breakfast is, and all the ingredients in that, like what are the different nutrition values I'm getting, and if this breakfast is really good for me, am I doing too much, am I doing too little? So I have so many of these questions, and in order to get the answer for that, the best person, of course, would be your health advisor or a nutrition expert. But then I went to ChatGPT and I just threw all this information. I was like, hey, this is what I eat. This is what goes in my breakfast, like blueberries and strawberries and raspberries and yogurt, like these couple spoons of yogurt, and this particular brand of cereal. That was something that was very interesting. I just gave a website link. I was like, this is the granola or cereals that I put in my breakfast. And then ChatGPT did a really good job in terms of giving me the insightful information about that breakfast, that how healthy the breakfast is, and what are the things I'm getting, what are the things I'm overdoing. So that level of research, I think it would have taken so much like time for me to kind of do all those research myself and combine all of those information together. But yeah, that's kind of like one example how, like, what are those different aspects of my life which would take a lot of time for me to put together all those little information, and even after doing that myself, I will still not be confident or accurate enough. So yeah, that will be an example that I would share.
No, yeah, I think that is a very interesting use case, and like I said, like I'm yet to explore, but yeah, you are like I think use case for ChatGPT, there is no limitation, and let us see, like in the future, what kind of versions, like we are yet to see that when ChatGPT can really provide real-time reports. That would be amazing to see.
Yeah. Great. All right, Aslam, we are right on the time. So let's wrap it up. Last question I have for you is, how can people find you online and stay connected with you and learn more about you?
Yeah, the best place to connect me would be through social media. Like with my similar name, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter as well. And yeah, you can always connect me through Multidots, right? Like you go to the Multidots website, and that is where one other way you can connect me.
Yeah. Thanks, Aslam. Yeah, it was really great talking to you. I mean, we know each other as a friend and as a business partner, but yeah, there are a lot of things that I didn't know or I haven't asked you, which the question that I asked, I learned a lot about, especially the parenting that you mentioned about, some of the books that you shared, and your definition of like just loving what you do, and if you just love what you do, there is no need for work-life balance. I think that was something that's one of the very profound takeaway, especially for me, and I'm sure that will also be helpful for a lot of people who are struggling with work-life balance in their life and work.
Yeah. No, thank you, Anil. Thank you for having me also on your podcast, and it was an honor, and it was great to share all the thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy. Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Peaceful Growth. Let me tell you, I'm an introvert, and also English is not my first language. So you would understand how uncomfortable it would be for me to do a podcast like this. But we don't grow staying in our comfort zone. And that's what I'm doing here, and also encourage you to do things that challenges you and take you out of your comfort zone. I would also appreciate it if you shared this episode with others. It will help me on my mission to inspire 100 million people to build an extraordinary life. To learn more about how I balance my multi-million-dollar business and continue to learn and grow in other areas of life, check out my weekly newsletter, Learn Plus Grow, on anilg.substack.com. May the peace and growth be with you.